The emergency alarm echoed through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. Taijin Ru ran down the marble corridors, his blue skin turning darker with worry. Something was very wrong. The council had never called an emergency meeting. At this hour, when he reached the main chamber, hundreds of alien delegates were already there. The room buzzed with confused voices speaking in dozens of languages. Taijin took his seat in the security section and looked around. The Zenthari were clicking their claws nervously. The Morvac were whispering among themselves. Even the usually calm Veltheron were showing signs of stress. "Order! Order!" shouted Chancellor Wanho Bei from the central podium. His voice boomed through the speakers. The room slowly became quiet. "We have received disturbing reports from across the galaxy. It appears that every human settlement has been abandoned." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Taijin felt his stomach drop. Every human settlement? That was impossible. There were thousands of human colonies across 50 star systems. Counselor Yuna Shin stood up from her seat. Her silver hair caught the chamber lights as she spoke. "Chancellor, can you be more specific? Surely you don't mean every single human." "Outpost?" The Chancellor's face was grim. "I mean exactly that, Counselor. From the mining stations on Kepler 442 to the research facilities on Proxima Centauri. From the agricultural worlds in the Vega system to the shipyards orbiting Volf 359. Every single human presence has vanished overnight." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting questions and accusations. Taijin's mind raced. As head of Council Security, he should have known about this. How had an entire species disappeared without his knowledge? "What about Ambassador Minho Park?" called out a Quillen delegate. "Where is the human representative?" Chancellor Bei activated a holographic display above the podium. The image of Minho Park appeared, recorded just hours earlier. The human looked tired but determined. His dark eyes stared directly at the camera as he spoke. "Members of the Galactic Council," Minho's voice was calm and steady. "For 200 years, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have built your ships, maintained your stations, and solved your problems. We have asked for nothing but respect and equal treatment," the recording continued. "Instead, we have been treated as servants. Our innovations have been stolen and credited to others. Our people have been denied promotions and opportunities. When we speak in this chamber, we are ignored or dismissed." Taijin noticed that several alien delegates looked uncomfortable. The Zenthari delegate was studying his claws. The Morvac representative had turned away from the screen. "We gave you chances to change," Minho continued. "We filed formal complaints. We requested investigations. We asked for equal representation. Each time, we were told to be patient. Each time, we were promised things would improve. They never did." The human ambassador's expression hardened. "So we are done. We are leaving. We will not serve a council that sees us as tools rather than equals. Find someone else to fix your problems." The recording ended. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the shouting began again. "This is ridiculous," yelled a Zenthari delegate. "They can't just leave. They have contracts. They have obligations." "Where did they go?" demanded another voice. "They can't have just disappeared." Taijin stood up slowly. As security chief, he had access to information others didn't. "Chancellor, may I speak?" The room quieted. Taijin's reputation commanded respect across all species. "I have reviewed the security reports from the past 72 hours. The humans didn't just vanish. They left in an organized manner." He activated his own display, showing shipping records and flight plans. "Over the past month, human cargo ships have been moving constantly between their settlements. We thought it was normal trade. Now I realized they were moving everything. They owned," the data scrolled across the screen. "Thousands of ships, millions of tons of cargo, all moving in a coordinated pattern." "They didn't abandon their settlements," Taijin continued. "They packed everything up and took it with them." "But where?" Counselor Yuna Shin asked. "Our sensors would have detected such a massive fleet movement." Taijin's expression was troubled. "That's what worries me most. Our sensors detected nothing unusual. Either they have technology we don't know about, or they planned this so carefully that we never saw it coming. Dr. Soyin Nam, a Quillan scientist who often worked with humans, stood up. I was at the research station on Titan yesterday. The humans there seemed normal. They were working on the climate stabilization project as usual. How could they have evacuated an entire moon-sized facility without anyone noticing? Because they're smarter than we gave them credit for, Taijin said quietly. The room fell silent again. It was not a comfortable silence. Chancellor Bay cleared his throat. We need to understand the scope of this situation. Each sector will report on how this affects their operations. We'll start with transportation. The Morvac transport minister looked pale. Chancellor, humans operated 60% of our long-distance cargo routes. They maintain the navigation systems for the hyperspace lanes. Without them, double quote, he trailed off. What about the Zenthari mining operations? The Chancellor asked. The Zenthari representative clicked his claws nervously. Humans designed and maintained our deep space mining equipment. They also ran the processing facilities on 12 different worlds. We don't know how to operate their systems. One by one, the reports came in. Each was worse than the last. Humans had been involved in every aspect of galactic civilization. They built the ships, maintained the stations, designed the computers, and operated the critical systems that kept everything running. Counselor Yuna Shin looked shocked. How did we not realize how dependent we were on them? Because they never complained about doing the work, Taijin said. They just did it quietly and efficiently. We took it for granted. As the meeting continued, the true scope of the crisis became clear. The humans hadn't just left. They had taken their knowledge with them. The technical manuals were gone. The maintenance schedules had disappeared. Even the computer passwords had been changed or deleted. What about the human quarter here on the council station? Asked a delegate. Taijin had already checked. Empty. They left yesterday evening. Their apartments are clean and bare. They took everything, down to the light bulbs. This is economic warfare, shouted the Zenthari delegate. They're trying to force us to give in to their demands. What demands? Counselor Yuna Shin asked. They didn't make any demands. They just left. The Chancellor called for order again. We need to establish contact with them. They can't have gone far. A fleet that size needs supply bases and fuel stops. But Taijin was studying the shipping records more carefully. Something was bothering him. The human cargo movements weren't random. They followed a pattern like pieces of a puzzle coming together. But the puzzle led beyond the edge of known space. Chancellor, he said slowly, I think they've been planning this for a very long time. These shipping patterns go back years, maybe decades. They've been slowly moving resources and equipment to the outer rim. The outer rim is empty space, scoffed a delegate. There's nothing out there. Maybe there is now, Taijin replied. The room fell silent once more. As the emergency session ended hours later, one thing was clear. The humans had left without a word of warning, without negotiation, and without looking back. They had taken everything they had built and everything they knew. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species had simply walked away from civilization itself, and now the Council had to figure out how to survive without them. 3 months had passed since the humans disappeared. The Galactic Council building felt different now. The corridors seemed quieter, the air recycling systems worked less efficiently, and small problems kept appearing everywhere. Councillor Haniel Kim walked quickly through the Economic Analysis Center, carrying a thick stack of reports. Her face showed the strain of working 16-hour days for weeks. The economic data was getting worse every day, and no one seemed to understand why. The Nexari Collective is reporting another mining accident, announced her assistant as she entered her office. That's the 7th one this month. Haniel set down the reports and rubbed her tired eyes. What kind of accident? Equipment failure. The deep core extraction systems shut down unexpectedly. They're saying it will take months to repair. That's strange, Haniel muttered. Those systems never failed before. She pulled up the technical specifications on her computer. The mining equipment was incredibly complex, with thousands of moving parts and sophisticated control systems. Who maintained these systems? Her assistant checked the records. According to the files, a company called Park Engineering Solutions handled all maintenance and upgrades. Hanyo felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Park Engineering. Wasn't that a human company? Yes, ma'am. They had contracts with mining operations across 17 sectors. The same pattern was appearing. Everywhere. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were suddenly failing. Transport ships were breaking down in space. Communication networks were experiencing mysterious glitches. Power stations were shutting down without warning. At first, everyone assumed it was just bad luck. Equipment fails sometimes. But after 3 months, even the most optimistic council members were starting to worry. Councillor Yuna Shin called an emergency meeting of the Economic Committee. The conference room was packed with worried-looking delegates from every major trade organization in the galaxy. The situation is becoming critical, Yuna announced. Trade volume is down 40% from last quarter. Several major shipping routes have been suspended due to equipment failures. A Morvac trade minister raised his hand. What about the hyperspace navigation system? Half our ships are reporting guidance errors. The navigation system was designed and maintained by Human Navigation Services, replied another delegate. They updated the software every month and calibrated the sensors quarterly. Well, can't we just hire someone else to do it? Asked a Xanthari representative. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, Haniel spoke up. We've tried. The problem is that the humans didn't just do the work. They designed the systems from the ground up. The technical documentation is written in human languages and uses human mathematical concepts. Even the user interfaces assume human methods of thinking. Dr. Soyan Nam, who had been invited as a technical advisor, nodded grimly. I've been studying this problem for weeks. Human technology isn't just advanced. It's fundamentally different from how other species approach engineering. They think in terms of integrated systems rather than separate components. She activated a holographic display showing a typical human-designed power station. Look at this. A Xanthari engineer would build each system separately. Power generation, distribution, monitoring, and safety controls would all be independent modules. Humans built it as one interconnected organism. The display zoomed in on the control systems. Every component talks to every other component. The cooling system monitors the generators adjust based on distribution needs, and the safety systems predict problems before they happen. It's beautiful, but if you don't understand the whole system, you can't fix any part of it. So what happens when it breaks? Asked the Morvac minister. It doesn't break, Dr. Soyan replied. That's the problem. Human systems were designed to be self-maintaining. They rarely failed because they were constantly adjusting and repairing themselves. But now, without human oversight, they're starting to degrade. Yuna leaned forward in her chair. Are you saying that human technology needs humans to operate? Not exactly. I'm saying that human technology was designed by minds that think differently than ours. They anticipated problems we would never consider and built solutions we don't understand. Hanyo pulled up her economic reports. The financial impact is already severe. The Xanthari mining operations are requesting emergency aid. The Morvac Transport Guild is facing bankruptcy. And that's just the beginning. She scrolled through pages of data. I've been analyzing the economic structure of the galaxy, and I've discovered something disturbing. Humans weren't just participants in our economy. They were the foundation. It was built on. The room buzzed with confused murmurs. How could one species be so important? Think about it, Haniel continued. Who built the first hyperspace engines that allowed interstellar trade? Humans, who designed the standardized shipping containers that made cargo transport efficient. Humans, who created the universal translation software that let different species communicate. Humans. She stood up and began pacing. For the past 200 years, every major technological advancement has come from human innovation. We adopted their solutions because they worked better than anything we had. But we never learned how to maintain or improve them ourselves. Dr. Soyan added, I've been reviewing personnel records from the major corporations. Humans held key positions everywhere, but they were almost never in leadership roles. They were the chief engineers, head technicians, and senior specialists. The aliens were the managers and executives. So the aliens made the decisions, but the humans did. The actual work? Yuna asked. More than that, Soyan replied. The humans understood how everything worked. They could see problems coming and fix them before they became serious. They were the ones who knew which systems were critical and which could be safely modified. A Quillen delegate who had been quiet during the meeting finally spoke up. My world depends on the atmospheric processors that maintain our artificial climate. Those processors haven't been serviced in 3 months. Our technical staff says they don't understand how to perform the maintenance. What happens if they fail? Yuna asked. Our atmosphere becomes toxic within weeks. 60 billion people would need to be evacuated. The room went completely silent. The full scale of the crisis was finally becoming clear. Haniel returned to her seat and pulled up a new set of data. I've been tracking communication intercepts from our border monitoring stations. We've detected some interesting transmissions. The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy with small dots marking signal sources. These appear to be human ships, but they're not where we expected them to be. Where are they? Asked Yuna. Beyond the galactic rim, in what we always assumed was empty space. Haniel zoomed in on the signals. But they're not random. The ships are organized in formation and moving with purpose. How many ships? Someone asked and checked her notes. Conservative estimate? Several million. They appeared to have taken their entire civilization with them. Dr. Soyan studied the display carefully. These formations. They're not refugee fleets. Look at the organization, the discipline. This is a planned migration. Migration to where? Demanded the Zenthari delegate. There's nothing out there. Maybe there is now, Soyan replied quietly. As the meeting broke up, the delegates filed out with worried expressions. The economic crisis was just beginning, and no one had any good solutions. Yuna remained behind with Haniel and Soyan. How long do we have before systems start failing catastrophically? She asked. Neul consulted her projections. Based on current trends, 6 months, maybe less? The humans built everything to last, but without proper maintenance, even the best systems will eventually break down. And then we find out what galactic civilization looks like without the people who built it. Outside the conference room windows, the lights of the council station flickered slightly. It was probably nothing serious, just a minor power fluctuation, but 3 months ago the lights had never flickered at all. 6 months after the humans left, the first major disaster struck. Admiral Jihu Lee had been serving with the Quillen Imperial Fleet for 15 years. He was one of the few humans who had achieved high rank in an alien military. Now he sat in the emergency command center, watching his life's work collapse around him. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the entire Third Fleet, reported his Quillen communications officer. Engine failures across 27 ships. Jihu studied the tactical display. Red warning lights marked disabled vessels scattered across 3 star systems. What kind of engine failures? Hyperspace drives are shutting down without warning. Some ships are stranded between dimensions. Others are stuck in normal space with no propulsion. The Admiral felt sick. He knew what was happening even if no one else did. Have engineering teams attempted repairs? Yes, sir. But they say the human-designed components are too complex. They need the original technical manuals and diagnostic equipment, which we don't have, Jihu said quietly. The Quillen officer looked confused. Sir, I don't understand. Jihu turned away from the display. How could he explain that the fleet's most advanced ships were essentially human technology with Quillen paint? The aliens had provided the raw materials and the crew, but humans had designed every critical system across the galaxy. Similar scenes were playing out. Dr. Soyan Nam received an emergency call from the Zenthari Medical Authority. 3 major hospitals had lost their life support systems. The surgical robots had malfunctioned. Even the basic diagnostic equipment was failing. "How many casualties?" she asked the panicked Zenthari doctor on the screen. "Hundreds so far, but it could be thousands if we can't restore the systems. Our medical staff doesn't know how to operate." Without the automated systems, Soyan closed her eyes. The medical technology was entirely human-designed. The diagnostic algorithms, the surgical procedures, even the pharmaceutical formulas, all created by human doctors and scientists who were now gone. "Can you transfer patients to facilities with working equipment?" "That's the problem," the Zenthari replied. "The failures are happening everywhere. It's like all the human technology is breaking down at the same time." On the agricultural world of New Harvest, farmer Wanho Kong watched his crops dying. The automated irrigation systems had failed 3 days ago. The soil treatment plants were offline. Even the weather control satellites had stopped responding to commands. "How long before the harvest is completely lost?" asked his assistant. Wanho stared at the withering fields. 2 weeks, maybe less. Without the human agricultural systems, we can't maintain the crop yields needed to feed 12 billion people. New Harvest fed 17 star systems. If the harvest failed, food riots would begin within months. The pattern was the same everywhere. On mining worlds, the extraction equipment sat silent. On manufacturing planets, the factories had ground to a halt. Transport ships drifted helplessly in space. Their navigation systems dark. Counselor Yuna Shin called another emergency session, but this time the mood was different. The delegates weren't confused anymore, they were scared. "The situation has moved beyond economic crisis," she announced. "We are facing the potential collapse of galactic civilization." Taijin Ru presented his latest intelligence report. "I've identified the core problem. Human technology wasn't just advanced, it was integrated into every aspect of our society. When they left, they didn't just take their people. They took the knowledge that keeps our world working." He activated a holographic map showing the galaxy. Red zones marked areas experiencing critical system failures. The failures are spreading in a predictable pattern. Systems with the most human involvement are failing first. Others will follow as supporting infrastructure breaks down. "How long do we have?" asked the Morvac delegate. "At current rates, complete infrastructure collapse within 18 months. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some delegates demanded military action to force the humans to return. Others suggested trying to rebuild the technology themselves. A few quietly mentioned surrender terms. Dr. Soyan Nam stood up slowly. "I've been studying human technical documentation for months, trying to understand their systems. I need to tell you something that might be hard to hear." The room quieted. "Human technology isn't just advanced. It's based on completely different principles than our science. They approach problems from angles we never considered. Their solutions work, but we don't understand why they work." She activated her own display, showing comparative engineering approaches. "Look at this hyperspace engine design. A Zenthari engineer would build it with discrete components, generator, field projector, navigation computer, all separate systems. The human design integrates everything into a single matrix that adjusts constantly to maintain optimal performance." "So we reverse engineer it," suggested someone. "We've tried. The problem is that human brains work differently than ours. They see patterns and connections that we miss. They anticipate problems we never think of. It's not just technology, it's a completely different way of understanding the universe." Counselor Hanyul Kim presented the latest economic data. "Resource allocation is breaking down. Without the human logistics networks, we can't efficiently move goods between systems. Some worlds are experiencing shortages while others have dangerous surpluses." "What about food distribution?" asked a delegate. "Critical. The agricultural worlds depend on human-designed systems for everything from soil management to crop processing. We estimate a 50% drop in food production within the year. Una felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. The Galactic Council had existed for over 1,000 years, maintaining peace and prosperity across hundreds of worlds. Now it was all falling apart because one species had walked away. What about the human settlements that were abandoned? She asked Taijin. Could we salvage equipment or data from those sites? Taijin shook his head. I sent teams to investigate several former human colonies. They found nothing useful. The humans didn't just abandon their settlements, they sterilized them. Every piece of technology was removed or destroyed beyond recovery. They planned this, Una realized. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. They prepared for years, maybe decades. The evidence supports that conclusion, Taijin agreed. Communication intercepts suggest they were organizing the evacuation for at least 50 years. Every human in the galaxy knew it was coming. Dr. Soyen pulled up personnel records. I've been studying human employment patterns. Over the past century, humans gradually moved into positions where they controlled critical infrastructure. Not leadership positions, they were rarely promoted to those. But they became the people who actually understood how everything worked. She scrolled through thousands of names and job titles. Chief engineers, senior technicians, system administrators, maintenance supervisors. Humans held these positions across the galaxy, and when they left, they took that knowledge with them. So we're helpless? Demanded a Xanthari delegate. Not helpless, Soyen replied, but we're dependent. We built our civilization on human innovation without learning to innovate ourselves. Now we're finding out what that really means. Admiral Jihu Lee transmitted a report from the military sector. Fleet effectiveness is down 70%. We can maintain basic operations for perhaps 6 more months. After that, we'll be unable to defend council space. The implications were staggering. Without military protection, the outer colonies would be vulnerable to pirates and raiders. Trade routes would become too dangerous to use. The economic collapse would accelerate. Have we had any success contacting the human fleet? Una asked. Taijin consulted his notes. Long-range sensors have tracked them to the galactic rim, but they're not responding to communication attempts. They appear to be constructing permanent installations in deep space. What kind of installations? Unknown. The structures are massive. Some appear to be larger than space stations. They're using construction techniques we don't recognize. As the session ended, the delegates left with grim faces. The human exodus wasn't just an economic problem or a political crisis. It was an extinction-level event for galactic civilization. Una remained in the chamber after everyone else had gone. She stared at the empty seats where human delegates had once sat. For 200 years, they had participated in council sessions, offering solutions to problems and sharing their knowledge freely. The council had taken their contributions for granted. Worse, they had actively prevented humans from gaining real power or influence. The humans had been treated as valuable servants rather than equal partners. Now those servants were gone, and the masters were discovering they didn't know how to survive without them. Outside the chamber windows, another section of the station's lights flickered and went dark. The maintenance crews would fix it eventually, but each repair took longer than the last. The humans had built systems that maintained themselves. Without them, everything was slowly breaking down, and there was no one left who knew how to fix it. The council chambers had never seen such desperation. 9 months after the human exodus, Chancellor Wanho Bei stood before an assembly of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and they were all looking to him for salvation he couldn't provide. Operation Reconnect is our only hope, he announced. We must establish contact with the human fleet and negotiate their return. Counselor Sunwoo Choi, the council's most skilled diplomat, stepped forward. I've assembled a team of our best negotiators and cultural specialists. We're prepared to offer significant concessions. What kind of concessions? Asked a Xanthari delegate. Sunwoo pulled up a holographic document. full voting rights in the council, equal representation in all committees, guaranteed positions in leadership roles, and he paused, knowing his next words would cause an uproar. Reparations for past discrimination. The chamber exploded in angry voices. Several delegates jumped to their feet, shouting about the precedent such concessions would set. Others argued about the economic impossibility of reparations. Taijin-Ru waited for the noise to die down before speaking. The alternative is complete civilizational collapse within 6 months. Our infrastructure is failing faster than we can repair it. Food shortages are already causing riots on 12 worlds. He activated a new display showing the latest damage reports. The Quillan Empire has lost 50% of its fleet to equipment. Failures, the Xanthari mining operations have shut down entirely. 3 major trade routes are now too dangerous to use because the navigation beacons have failed. Yuna Shin nodded grimly. The medical crisis alone justifies any concessions we might make? Without human medical technology, our hospitals are reverting to procedures that haven't been used in centuries. The death rate is climbing exponentially. But even as they spoke, deep space monitoring stations were detecting something that would change everything. Lieutenant Minji Kong sat at her sensor station on the outer rim monitoring post, studying readings that didn't make sense. The sensors were detecting massive energy signatures beyond the edge of map space. "Commander," she called to her superior, "I'm getting some unusual readings from Sector 77 Alpha." Commander Deho Park looked over her shoulder at the display. "What kind of readings? Artificial structures, big ones?" "And they single quotes read ... growing," the commander frowned. "Growing?" Minji adjusted the sensors for better resolution. "The structures appear to be under construction, but the scale is enormous. Some of these things are the size of moons." Within hours, the data was transmitted to the council. The intelligence caused immediate panic. The humans hadn't just fled to empty space. They had been building something out there. Something massive. Taijin-Ru studied the sensor data with growing alarm. These aren't refugee camps or temporary settlements. The humans are constructing permanent infrastructure on a scale we've never seen. He highlighted specific sections of the readings. "This structure here appears to be a shipyard, but it's large enough to build vessels the size of asteroids. And this one looks like a space station, but it's bigger than most planetary cities. How long have they been working on this?" Yuna asked. "Based on the construction progress visible in the scans, at least 20 years, maybe longer." The implications were staggering. While the council had assumed humans were simply integrated into galactic society, they had been secretly building their own civilization beyond the borders of known space. Operation Reconnect launched 2 weeks later. Sun Woo Choi led a diplomatic fleet of 5 ships toward the coordinates where long-range sensors had detected the human fleet. The journey took them beyond the established hyperspace routes, into regions of space that appeared on no official charts. What they found exceeded their worst fears. "By the void," whispered the ship's navigator as they dropped out of hyperspace. "Look at that." Ahead of them stretched a construction project that defied imagination. Hundreds of structures floated in the darkness, each one massive beyond comprehension. Space stations the size of cities. Shipyards that could build entire fleets simultaneously. Manufacturing facilities that dwarfed anything in council space. And ships. Thousands upon thousands of ships arranged in perfect formations that extended beyond the range of their sensors. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're being scanned. Multiple sources, very sophisticated technology." Sun Woo straightened his diplomatic robes. "Open a channel, all frequencies." "This is Counselor Sun Woo Choi of the Galactic Council, requesting permission to speak with human leadership. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and mutual understanding." For long minutes, there was no response. Then a new voice came through the speakers, speaking in perfect council standard but with an unmistakably human accent. "This is Fleet Commander Jiwon Kim of the Human Sovereignty." "State your business, Counselor." Sun Woo felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. At least they were willing to talk. Commander Kim, the Galactic Council seeks to establish diplomatic relations with your people. We wish to discuss the possibility of renewed cooperation. Cooperation? There was something cold in the human's voice. I mean, you want us to come back and fix your problems. We acknowledge that the departure of human citizens has caused difficulties throughout Council space. We're prepared to discuss significant improvements to human status and rights. A new voice joined the conversation. This is Admiral Hyunwoo Park, Military Command. Counselor, are you aware that Council forces are currently 3 light hours behind your diplomatic vessel? Sunwoo's blood went cold. He hadn't known about any military escort. Admiral, I assure you that our mission is purely diplomatic. Any military presence is unauthorized? Unauthorized by whom? Your government sent a battle fleet to accompany your peaceful diplomatic mission. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? The communication channel filled with the sound of multiple voices as the human leadership apparently discussed the situation. Finally, Commander Kim spoke again. Counselor, you and your immediate staff are welcome to board our facility for discussions. However, the Council battle fleet will maintain its current position or be considered hostile. An hour later, Sunwoo found himself aboard a human space station that was larger and more advanced than anything he had ever seen. The technology was clearly beyond anything in Council space. The walls seemed to glow with their own light, the gravity felt perfectly natural, and the air was cleaner than most planetary ATMOSPHERES. Fleet Commander Ji-won. Kim met them in what appeared to be a diplomatic reception area. She was a woman in her 50s, wearing a simple uniform that somehow conveyed more authority than the elaborate robes of Council dignitaries. Welcome to New Horizon Station, Counselor. I trust your journey was comfortable. Sunwoo looked around. The impressive facility. Commander, I must say this is far more advanced than we expected. How long have you been building here? 73 years, she replied matter-of-factly. We began construction shortly after the Council rejected our petition for equal representation in 2352. 73 years? Sunwoo was stunned. But that means you were planning to leave long before your recent exodus. Planning to be self-sufficient. Kim corrected. We hoped conditions would improve. They didn't, so we activated our contingency plans. She led them through corridors filled with advanced technology and efficient human workers. We call this the human sovereignty. 12 major installations, over 3 million citizens, and complete technological independence from Council space. They entered a conference room with a massive viewport looking out at the construction projects. Those shipyards you saw? They can produce vessels with capabilities far beyond anything in the Council fleet. Our manufacturing facilities can create technology that makes your most advanced systems look primitive. Sunwoo felt increasingly desperate. Commander, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Council is prepared to offer unprecedented concessions. Kim's expression hardened. What kind of concessions? Full voting rights, equal representation, guaranteed leadership positions, reparations for past discrimination. In other words, you want to give us what we should have had from the beginning, but only now that you need us to save your failing civilization. The human commander walked to the viewport and stared out at the massive construction projects. Counselor, do you know what we learned during our time in Council space? We learned that no matter how valuable our contributions, no matter how essential our work, we would always be seen as servants, useful but not equals. She turned back to face him. So we built this, a place where human ingenuity and human values could flourish without artificial limits imposed by those who fear our capabilities. But surely there's room for cooperation, Sunwoo pleaded. We can work together as equals. Kim smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Equals? Counselor, look around you. We have technology your people can't even understand. We have resources your economy can't match. We have military capabilities that would make your fleets obsolete. She walked closer to him. You want cooperation? Here are our terms. The Council will formally acknowledge the human sovereignty as an independent nation. You will establish trade relations on terms we dictate, and you will accept human oversight of any technology transfers. Oversight? Sungwoo's voice cracked. You mean you would control what technology we receive? We mean... The data archive was hidden deep in the abandoned human quarter of the council station. Archivist Nayeon Song had spent weeks searching through empty apartments and offices, looking for any information the humans might have left behind. Most buildings had been stripped completely clean, but she finally found what appeared to be a forgotten storage room in the basement of the old Human Cultural Center. Inside were dozens of data cores that the evacuation teams had somehow missed. Taijin, you need to see this. She called over her communication device. Security Chief Taijin Ru arrived an hour later with a team of technicians. What did you find? Nayeon held up one of the data cores. Records, lots of them. Personal files, official documents, communication logs. The humans kept detailed records of everything. They brought the cores to a secure analysis facility and began the painstaking process of decryption. What they found painted a picture that horrified even the most liberal council members. The first file they opened was a personal journal belonging to someone named Dr. Gina Choi, a human scientist, who had worked on the council's agricultural development project. Entry 247, another proposal rejected today. My suggestion to increase crop yields by 30% was dismissed without discussion. The Zenthuri Committee chairman said human ideas were too radical for their conservative farming methods. This is the 15th proposal they've rejected this year. Taijin frowned as he read. This doesn't sound like normal bureaucratic inefficiency. They opened another file, this one from engineer Seungmin Lim, who had worked on the hyperspace navigation systems. The Morvac supervisors are taking credit for my navigation algorithm again. When I complained to Human Resources, they told me to be grateful for the opportunity to contribute to the project. Contribute? I designed the entire system myself. File after file revealed the same pattern. Human innovations credited to alien supervisors. Human scientists denied promotions despite superior qualifications. Human engineers relegated to maintenance roles while less capable aliens received leadership positions, but the most damning evidence came from the official communications logs. These showed decades of formal complaints filed by human organizations, requesting fair treatment and equal opportunities. Nayeon opened a file labeled Petition for Equal Representation -2387. The document was signed by over 10,000 humans across 50 star systems. We, the human citizens of the Galactic Council territories, formally request equal representation in government and commerce. For over 100 years, humans have contributed significantly to galactic civilization, while being systematically excluded from positions of authority and influence. The petition detailed specific instances of discrimination, including hiring practices that favored non-humans, promotion policies that effectively excluded humans from leadership roles, and research projects where human contributions were minimized or ignored. Taijin scrolled through the Council's official response. The Council recognizes the valuable contributions of human citizens and assures them that all individuals are treated fairly according to established protocols. The current distribution of responsibilities reflects the natural abilities and preferences of different species. Natural abilities and preferences? Nayeon said angrily. They're basically saying humans are naturally suited for servant roles. The files revealed petition after petition, each one rejected with similar diplomatic language. The humans had been asking for equal treatment for decades, only to be told repeatedly that they should be satisfied with their current status. But the most shocking discovery came from a classified Council document marked Interspecies Relations. Strategic Assessment -2401. The document, authored by a committee of senior council members, analyzed the human problem with clinical detachment. While human technological capabilities are undeniably valuable, their rapid advancement poses potential challenges to established power structures. Humans demonstrate innovative thinking patterns that, if unchecked, could disrupt traditional Hierarchies within council space. Taijin read the next section with growing horror. Therefore, it is recommended that human advancement be carefully managed through strategic positioning in support roles rather than leadership positions. This approach maximizes their contributions while minimizing potential disruption to existing governmental and commercial structures. The document continued with specific recommendations for keeping humans in subordinate positions, while still benefiting from their innovations. It was a deliberate, systematic plan to exploit human capabilities while preventing them from gaining real power or influence. "This is genocide," Neon whispered. "Not physical genocide, but cultural and political genocide." They were deliberately destroying human potential. As they dug deeper into the archives, they found evidence of an even more disturbing pattern. The files revealed that General Hyunwoo Park, Admiral Minho Park's brother, had been secretly documenting every instance of discrimination for over 50 years. His personal files contained detailed records of every human scientist whose work had been stolen, every engineer who had been passed over for promotion, every proposal that had been rejected because of its human origin. "Look at this," Neon said, opening a massive database. He cataloged everything. Names, dates, specific incidents, even recorded conversations. It's like he was building a legal case. The database contained over 100,000 entries, each one documenting an instance of discrimination or exploitation. The scope was staggering. It affected virtually every human in council space. But the most significant discovery was a series of encrypted communications between General Park and human leaders across the galaxy. The messages revealed that the exodus hadn't been a spontaneous decision. It had been planned for decades. Project New Dawn, Phase 1 initiated. Read one message from 2389. Begin gradual resource consolidation and personnel positioning. Target completion, 2425. Another message from 2401. Infrastructure development ahead of schedule. Deep space installations now capable of supporting Phase 2 operations. And finally, the order that had triggered the exodus. Council discrimination has reached intolerable levels. All units proceed to Phase 3. Evacuate immediately. Leave nothing useful behind. Taijin realized the full scope of what had happened. The humans didn't just leave in anger. They executed a carefully planned withdrawal that had been in development for over 30 years. The files showed that humans had been slowly and secretly moving resources and personnel to the outer rim. Installations. Critical equipment had been gradually relocated. Key personnel had been positioned for rapid extraction. Even the timing of the exodus had been carefully coordinated to maximize the impact on council infrastructure. They knew exactly what would happen when they left, Neon said. They understood their importance to galactic civilization better than we did. But perhaps the most chilling discovery was a document labeled Projected Consequences of Human Withdrawal. It was a detailed analysis of what would happen to council space after the humans left. The projections were terrifyingly accurate. Infrastructure, failures, economic collapse, medical emergencies, military degradation. Every crisis the Council was currently facing had been predicted with mathematical precision. Why? Taijin asked aloud. Why document the consequences if they were planning to leave anyway? Neon found the answer in General Park's personal notes. To prove a point. They wanted a complete record of what we would lose when we lost them. This wasn't just revenge, it was education. The final document in the archive was a message addressed to the Galactic Council, dated just days before the exodus began. To the members of the Galactic Council, by the time you read this, the human withdrawal will be complete. We want you to understand that this action was not taken in anger or spite, but as a necessary response to systematic oppression that you refuse to acknowledge or correct. For 2 centuries, humans have served this council faithfully, asking only for respect and equal treatment. Instead, we were treated as valuable property, useful for our innovations but never trusted with real authority or influence. We gave you opportunities to change. We filed formal complaints, submitted detailed proposals, and requested basic fairness. Each time we were dismissed or given empty promises. You made it clear that we would never be considered equals regardless of our contributions, so we chose to leave. We built our own future in the darkness beyond your borders, and we will thrive without you. This archive contains evidence of every injustice we endured and every opportunity you wasted. Study it carefully. Learn from it, and remember that we gave you every chance to do better. The message was signed by General Hyunwoo Park and countersigned by thousands of human leaders across the galaxy. As Taijin and Neon finished reviewing the archives, they sat in stunned silence. The full scope of the Council's failure was overwhelming. For centuries, they had systematically oppressed the most innovative and capable species in the galaxy, all while depending on them for survival. We need to share this with the Council. Leadership, Taijin said finally. Will it make a difference? Neon asked. The damage is already done, maybe not. But if there's any chance of convincing the humans to help us, we need to acknowledge what we did wrong. We need to admit that they were right to leave. 1 year after the human exodus, the Galactic Council was dying. Counselor Yuna Shin stood in the Emergency Operations Center, surrounded by screens showing the collapse of galactic civilization in real time. Red warning lights flashed from every sector, indicating critical system failures, social unrest, and complete infrastructure breakdown. Status report, she called to the operations team. Lieutenant Minji Kong, now promoted to senior analyst, consulted her displays. The Zenthari Republic has declared martial law. Food riots in the capital city have killed over 3,000 people. Their agricultural systems have completely failed. What about the Morvac Federation? 17 worlds have reverted to pre-industrial technology. They're using animal-drawn carts for transportation and burning wood for heat. Their power grids collapsed 2 months ago. Yuna closed her eyes. The Morvac Federation had been one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Now they were living like primitives because they couldn't maintain the technology that humans had built for them. The Quillan Empire is requesting emergency evacuation assistance, continued Minji. Their homeworld's atmospheric processors are failing. They estimate they have maybe 6 weeks before the planet becomes uninhabitable. How many people need evacuation? 60 billion. The number was incomprehensible. Evacuating 60 billion people would require every functional ship in Council space. And most of those ships were breaking down due to maintenance failures. Dr. Soyan Nam entered the operations center carrying yet another stack of technical reports. Her appearance had changed dramatically over the past year. Her hair was now completely gray, and deep lines marked her face. The stress of trying to understand human technology had aged her decades. Any progress on the infrastructure? Repairs? Yuna asked. Soyan shook her head wearily. We've managed to restore basic functionality to some systems, but it's temporary at best. Without understanding the underlying principles, we're just applying patches to wounds that keep getting bigger. She activated a holographic display showing their latest attempts to repair a human-designed power station. Look at this. We managed to get the primary generators working again, but the efficiency is down 60%. The cooling systems are overloading and the safety protocols keep shutting everything down. How long will it last? Maybe a month. Then it will fail catastrophically, probably taking out the entire city's power grid. The pattern was the same everywhere. Council engineers could sometimes get human technology working again, but their repairs were crude and unreliable. It was like using stone tools to fix a quantum computer. Taijin Ru burst into the operations center with urgent news. Long range. Sensors have detected massive ship movements in human space. It looks like they're expanding their territory. Yuna felt her stomach drop. Expanding how? They've constructed mobile installations, city-sized structures that can travel at hyperspace speeds. Our analysts estimate they now control territory equivalent to 20 star systems. The holographic display showed the latest intelligence. Data. The human installations were indeed enormous, and they were moving in coordinated formations toward the edges of Council space. Are they planning to invade? Someone asked. Unknown, Taijin replied. But their military capabilities appear to have grown exponentially. We're detecting energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Dr. Soyen studied the data with professional interest despite her exhaustion. These energy readings, they're using power sources we can't even classify. Whatever they've built out there, it's generations ahead of anything in Council space. The implications were terrifying. While Council civilization collapsed, the humans had apparently been advancing their technology at an unprecedented rate. They now commanded resources and capabilities that made them the dominant power in the galaxy. We need to contact them again, Yuna said. Maybe we can negotiate some kind of aid agreement. I've been trying, Taijin replied. They're not responding to our communications. It's like they've written us off completely. A new alarm began blaring. Lieutenant Minji frantically checked her displays. Emergency transmission from the outer. Colonies, pirate fleets are raiding defenseless settlements. Without functional defense grids, the colonies can't protect themselves. Where are our patrol fleets? Yuna demanded. Grounded. 70% of our military vessels are non-functional due to equipment failures. The remaining ships can barely maintain local security. For over 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through superior technology and organized military force. Now they couldn't even protect their own territory from common criminals. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Chancellor Wanho Bei entered the operations center with a document that made Yuna's blood freeze. The Outer Rim territories have formally declared independence, he announced. They're no longer recognizing Council authority. How many worlds? Yuna asked. 47 systems. Nearly 200 billion people. They're forming their own government and requesting direct diplomatic relations with the human sovereignty. The council was fragmenting. As the infrastructure collapsed and the central government proved unable to provide basic services, individual regions were breaking away to seek their own solutions. There's more, the Chancellor continued grimly. The human sovereignty has formally recognized the Outer Rim independence movement. They're offering direct aid and trade agreements. Yuna realized what was happening. The humans weren't just watching Council space collapse. They were actively encouraging the breakup by offering alternatives through Council membership. It's a strategy, she said aloud. They're waiting for us to fall apart completely, then they'll move in to pick up the pieces. Dr. Soyen nodded. It makes sense from their perspective. Why try to reform a system that oppressed them for centuries? Better to let it collapse and build something new from the ruins. Over the following weeks, the situation deteriorated rapidly. More star systems declared independence. Refugee fleets began moving toward the Outer Rim, seeking sanctuary in human-controlled space. Even some council member species were privately reaching out to human representatives. The most shocking defection came from the Alterian Collective, one of the council's founding members. Their representative, Councillor Daeho Kim, announced that his people were withdrawing from the council to seek alliance with the humans. The Galactic Council has proven incapable of maintaining the civilization it claims to govern, he stated in his farewell address. The humans offered stability and prosperity. The council offers only chaos and decline. Yuna watched the announcement from her office, feeling the weight of 1,000 years of galactic government collapsing around her. The council chambers, once filled with hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy, now hosted fewer than 50 representatives from the remaining loyal systems. A priority message arrived from the intelligence service. Long-range reconnaissance had detected something. That changed everything. The human installations weren't just expanding, they were approaching. Council space. The message included tactical analysis that made grim reading. Human fleet strength estimated at over 10 million vessels. Technology assessment, significantly superior to Council capabilities. Defensive recommendations, none. Council forces insufficient to mount effective resistance. Taijin entered her office with the latest reports. The humans have established contact with our border systems. They're not demanding surrender, they're offering protection and aid to any worlds that request it. How many have accepted? All of them. Every border system has requested human protection within the past week. Una stared out her office window at the dying lights of the council station. The humans had won without firing a shot. They had simply withdrawn their support and watched their oppressors destroy themselves. There's one more thing, Taijin said quietly. We've received a personal message for you from the human leadership. He handed her a datapad containing a brief text message. Counselor Shin, the human sovereignty extends an invitation for council leadership to discuss transition arrangements. We believe it's time to end the suffering of innocent populations caught in this crisis. Fleet Commander Jiwon Kim. Una realized this was the endgame. The humans were ready to return, not as equals but as the unquestioned rulers of Galactic civilization. The council could either surrender gracefully or watch the last remnants of their territory collapse into chaos. Outside her window, another section of the station's lighting grid failed. In the distance she could see human ships appearing at the edge of sensor range, not as invaders, but as the new masters of a galaxy that had forgotten how to function without them. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of human dominance was about to begin, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The negotiation chamber aboard New Horizon Station was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the massive human fleet stretching beyond the horizon, while holographic displays demonstrated technological capabilities that made Council science look primitive. Ambassador Yunbi. Han sat across from the Council delegation with the calm confidence of someone holding all the winning cards. She was younger than most diplomats, perhaps 40 years old, but her presence dominated the room. Behind her stood advisors whose casual competence suggested they commanded forces that could reshape the galaxy. Counselor Shin, she said with polite formality, thank you for accepting our invitation. I understand the situation in council space has become quite desperate. Una shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Through the windows she could see human ships that dwarfed anything in the council fleet. Some were clearly warships bristling with weapons of unknown design. Others appeared to be mobile cities, housing millions of people in apparent comfort. Ambassador Han, the Galactic Council is prepared to discuss the restoration of diplomatic relations between our peoples. We acknowledge that past policies may have been inadequate. Yunbi smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Inadequate. That's an interesting way to describe 2 centuries of systematic oppression. She activated a holographic display showing the archived documents that Taijin and Neian had discovered. We have detailed records of every slight, every denied promotion, every stolen innovation. Your government's own files document the deliberate suppression of human advancement. Those policies were mistakes, Una said quickly. We're prepared to make significant changes. Full voting rights, equal representation, guaranteed leadership positions. In other words, you want to give us what we should have had from the beginning, but only now that your civilization is collapsing without us. Yunbi's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the politeness. Behind her, a military advisor whispered something in her ear. She nodded and turned back to the council delegation. Admiral Youngwoo Park sends his regards, by the way. He wanted me to thank you for providing such thorough documentation of your discriminatory practices. It made our legal case much easier. To prepare legal case? Taijin asked. For war crimes against humanity. Systematic oppression of an entire species qualifies under interstellar law, even if no physical violence was involved. We could demand tribunals, reparations, even occupation of council territory. The room fell silent. Una felt the blood drain from her face. The humans could probably enforce such demands with their superior technology and military strength. However, Yunbi continued, we're not interested in revenge. We're interested in preventing future atrocities and ensuring galactic stability. She stood and walked to the massive windows overlooking the human fleet. The human sovereignty is now the dominant power in this galaxy. Our technology is generations ahead of yours. Our military could conquer council space within months. Our economic resources exceed the entire council budget. So what do you want? Yuna asked desperately. Yunbi turned back to face them. We want to prevent the complete collapse of galactic civilization while ensuring that humanity is never again subjected to discrimination or oppression. She activated a new display showing a proposed governmental structure. The human sovereignty will establish protectorates over former council territory. We will restore infrastructure, provide humanitarian aid, and maintain security. Protectorates? The word stuck in Yuna's throat. Autonomous regions under human oversight. Local governments will handle day-to-day administration, but all major policy decisions will require human approval. Think of it as guided democracy. Yuna studied the proposal with growing horror. The council members would retain their titles and some authority, but real power would rest with human administrators. It was a velvet glove over an iron fist. What about the council itself? Asked Chancellor Wanhobei. The Galactic Council will be reformed as an advisory body within the human sovereignty. You'll have input on policy decisions, but humans will hold veto power over any proposals that could threaten stability or security. Yunbi smiled again, and this time it looked almost sympathetic. Counselor, I understand this is difficult to accept, but consider the alternative. Without our intervention, council space will descend into complete chaos. Billions will die. Entire civilizations will collapse back into barbarism. She gestured toward the windows, where emergency medical ships could be seen in the distance. We're already providing humanitarian aid to 17 star systems. Medical supplies, food shipments, technical assistance. We're doing this because suffering is unnecessary, not because we owe you anything. The offer was as generous as it was humiliating. The humans would save galactic civilization, but only under their terms and their control. There's one more requirement, Yunbi said, her tone becoming more serious. Complete transparency in government. All council records will be made available to human oversight. All policy decisions will be reviewed by human administrators, and any official found to have engaged in discriminatory practices will be removed from office. You're talking about occupation, Taijin said bluntly. We're talking about accountability. For too long, council leadership has made decisions without considering their impact on the people they govern. That ends now. Yuna looked around the room at her fellow delegates. Their faces showed the same mixture of despair and resignation she felt. They had no choice. The council could either accept human dominance or watch their civilization die. How long would this protectorate status last? She asked. Until human leadership determines that local governments can be trusted to treat all species fairly and equitably. Given the council's history, that could take several generations. Yuna realized that she was witnessing the end of an era. The Galactic Council had ruled for over 1,000 years, but that age was over. The humans weren't just demanding equal treatment. They were positioning themselves as the permanent guardians of galactic civilization. What about human colonies that might want to return to council space? Asked another delegate. Umbi's expression hardened. There won't be any council space. There will be human sovereignty territory and regions under human protection. Any humans who choose to live in those areas will do so with full rights and protections guaranteed. She walked back to her seat and pulled up another document. This is our formal proposal. You have 72 hours to consider it. After that, we'll begin implementing our humanitarian programs with or without council cooperation. And if we refuse? Yuna asked. Then you refuse. We won't force you to sign anything. But we also won't stand by and watch billions of innocent people suffer because of your pride. The message was clear. The humans would intervene to save the collapsing systems whether the council leadership agreed or not. The only question was whether that intervention would include council participation or sweep them aside entirely. As the meeting ended, Yuna found herself alone with Umbi for a moment. Ambassador, can I ask you something personally? Of course. Do. You hate us? After everything we did to your people? Umbi considered the question carefully. I don't hate you, counselor, but I don't trust you either. Hatred is emotional. What happened to humanity was systematic and deliberate. You created policies designed to keep us subordinate while benefiting from our capabilities. She gathered her documents. We're not doing this for revenge. We're doing it because we've learned that good intentions aren't enough. Power must be backed by accountability, and accountability requires oversight. So this is permanent? Human dominance over the galaxy? This is realistic. We tried equality and partnership for 2 centuries. You treated us as servants. Now we'll try a different approach. As Yuna left the station, she looked back at the massive human installations. The humans had built something magnificent in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. They had taken their oppression and transformed it into strength. Now they were returning not as equals but as conquerors, benevolent perhaps, but conquerors nonetheless. The age of human dominance was beginning, and there was no going back. The Council could accept their terms or fade into irrelevance. Either way, the humans would reshape galactic civilization according to their own vision, and given their track record, that vision might actually be better than what had come before. 2 years after the silent exodus, intern Minji Kong walked through the rebuilt council chambers with a mixture of awe and unease. The architecture was still recognizably the same, but everything felt different. The air was cleaner, the lights were brighter, and the technology hummed with quiet efficiency. Human efficiency. The chambers themselves had been expanded and modernized. Where once there had been separate sections for different species, now there was a single unified seating arrangement. At the center, elevated above all others, sat the human delegation. Their section was larger, more prominent, and clearly marked as the position of authority. Minji had been assigned to document the first joint session of the reformed Galactic Council. What she witnessed would be remembered as the day Galactic civilization officially entered the age of human dominance. The session will come to order, announced first speaker Minho Park. The former ambassador had returned, but his role was vastly different now. Instead of pleading for human rights, he commanded the attention of hundreds of delegates representing dozens of species. His simple black uniform contrasted sharply with the elaborate robes worn by the alien dignitaries, but there was no question who held real power in the room. Before we begin formal proceedings, Minho continued, I want to address the state of galactic civilization over the past 24 months. A holographic display showed the current status of former council territory. Instead of the red warning lights that had dominated screens during the crisis, the map now showed mostly green indicators representing stable, functioning systems. Infrastructure restoration is now complete in 78% of protected territories. Food distribution networks have been re-established. Medical facilities are operating at full capacity. Civil order has been maintained in all sectors, under human sovereignty protection. Minji made notes as she listened. The transformation had been remarkable. Systems that had been dying just months earlier were now more prosperous than they had been even before the human exodus. However, Minho's tone became more serious. This restoration came at a cost. The human sovereignty has invested enormous resources in saving civilizations that proved incapable of maintaining themselves. We did this not because we owed anyone anything, but because we believe all sentient beings deserve the opportunity to live in dignity and peace. He gestured toward the alien delegates. You are here today not as equals, that fiction has been abandoned, but as participants in a new system designed to prevent the mistakes of the past. Counselor Yuna Shin, one of the few remaining original council members, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She had signed the surrender documents 6 months earlier, formally transferring council authority to the human sovereignty. Now she served as a regional administrator under human oversight. The first order of business, Minho announced, is the formal establishment of the Galactic Protection Accords. A new document appeared on the displays throughout the chamber. Minji read through it quickly, noting its key provisions. All member territories would be governed by local administrations, but human advisors would have final authority over major policy decisions. Trade would be regulated by human economic councils. Military forces would be integrated under human Command. Most significantly, a new Bill of Rights guaranteed equal treatment for all species, with human oversight to ensure enforcement. The Xanthari Republic wishes to express gratitude for the restoration of our mining operations, announced the Xanthari representative. However, we request clarification on the new administrative structure, Minho smiled politely. Administrator Chun will address your concerns after the session. All administrative questions should be directed to your assigned human oversight officer. The casual dismissal would have been unthinkable in the old council. Now it was simply the new reality. The aliens could speak, but humans would decide. What was important enough to address Dr. Soyan Nam, now serving as Director of Interspecies Science Coordination, presented the next agenda item. The Human Sovereignty is pleased to announce the establishment of joint research facilities throughout protected territories. These facilities will focus on improving quality of life for all species while ensuring that technological development proceeds safely and responsibly. Minji noticed the careful phrasing. The humans would share their advanced technology, but only under their control and supervision. No more would alien species be able to misuse human innovations or claim credit for human discoveries. The Morvik Federation requests information about technology transfer agreements, called out a delegate. All technology transfers will be evaluated by the Human Technology Assessment Board, Soyan replied. We want to ensure that new technologies are implemented properly and used for beneficial purposes only, the subtext was clear. The humans would decide what technology each species could handle and how it could be used. They had learned from their past experience that sharing knowledge freely led to exploitation and misuse. As the session continued, Minji observed the dynamics in the room. The alien delegates asked questions and made requests, but they did so with the careful deference of petitioners rather than the confident authority of equals. The humans, meanwhile, spoke with the calm assurance of people who knew their decisions would be final. The most dramatic moment came when Ambassador Yunbi Han announced the establishment of the Galactic Justice Tribunal. This tribunal will investigate historical cases of species discrimination and systemic oppression, she stated. We will review the actions of former council leadership and determine appropriate consequences for those responsible for past injustices. A wave of nervous murmurs swept through the chamber. Many of the remaining alien officials had been complicit in the policies that had oppressed humanity for centuries. The tribunal will operate under human jurisdiction with the full authority of the human sovereignty, Yunbi continued. Justice delayed is justice denied, and we intend to address the crimes of the past while building a better future. Yuna looked pale as she realized the implications. The humans weren't just taking control of the government, they were planning to hold the previous leadership accountable for their actions. The session concluded with first speaker Minho delivering what amounted to a declaration of the new galactic order. For over 1,000 years, the Galactic Council maintained a system that privileged some species while oppressing others. That system has failed and will not be restored. In its place, we offer something better, a civilization based on merit, justice, and mutual respect under human guidance. He stood and looked across the assembled delegates. We did not seek this responsibility. It was forced upon us by your inability to govern fairly and effectively. But we accept it, and we will exercise it with the wisdom and compassion that your predecessors lacked. The age of the Galactic Council is over. The age of the human sovereignty has begun. Those who embrace this new reality will find prosperity and security. Those who resist it will find themselves irrelevant. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Minji overheard fragments of conversation that revealed the mixed feelings many had about the new order. At least the supply lines are working again, muttered a Quillen official. But at what cost? Replied his companion. We're essentially a client state now. Better a client state than a dead civilization, came the pragmatic response. That evening, Minji attended a reception for the diplomatic staff. She found herself in conversation with General Hyunwoo Park, the man whose meticulous documentation had provided the evidence for humanity's case against